Good evening. Happy dark moon. I'm uh, I'm Katrina Messenger, and I'm here to deliver my dark moon message or new moon message, depends on how you look at it. Um, but it's important often when we do things like this over the internet that we put some context. I mean, the page will say July 2023, but it's almost like I want to put up some of the weather reports for the nation. You know, heat, floods, wildfires in Canada, wildfires in California, waiting, tornadoes, waiting for hurricanes. I mean, hail. It's all there. It's all part of the mixture, and that's the context within which this message is given. That we are experiencing climate change, and we're right in the midst of it, the beginnings of it anyway. It's been beginning for a while, but we're at the stage where even the climate deniers are having to face a bit of the truth. But it occurred to me as I was reading and researching and contemplating some of the things for my manuscript or body wisdom, and I was trying to look at, it's like what are the processes that prepare us to live in this world? And I started thinking about the learning process and how we have to make an effort now with American children to get them caught up with the rest of the world for STEM, for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And if you're my generation, the baby boomers, that's like what? We were considered, some of the leaders in those industries for so long that the fact that we are failed to teach multiple generations sufficient amounts about those areas that now our children have to be given remedial work to bring them up to the standards worldwide. I find that fascinating. And it's fascinating in a couple of ways because the way we teach here in the US and probably in most of the Western world, and not being familiar with the teaching methodologies in, say, China or Japan or India or any other places in the East, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and other places. Um, I can only speak for the Western methods, and part of the problem is the way we drill information into our students, and so it makes me wonder how much of the STEM will be taught in a way that it will actually be of use. I remember my professors in engineering school and the mathematics department and the physics department did a great deal of work trying to undo the damage from our earlier years in areas like mathematics and physics, basic science of physics. Um, and it made me think about that in terms of how we're teaching STEM because education has clearly had a class bias. When you're of the upper crust, your education is about being worldly, of being able to operate in the world, to speak in multiple languages, to understand the finances of those countries, to understand the finance of your country of your origin, um, understanding who people are in positions of power and how you are either related or have contacts or have connections with them. Whereas for those of us who are the cogs in the machines, we're taught simply enough so that we can do things like read a manual or buy groceries or um, I don't know, a fasten a you know, a bolt onto a chassis. We're taught like bots, and which is interesting because we have all this stuff about AI right now. So everything's like mixing in for me. And so a lot of our education treated us as if learning was basically about saving information somewhere, like on a hard disk, and that we should be able to retrieve that information, like going back to our hard disk, and then being able to dump it all and prove that we have it. But learning is not about saving and storing information. Learning is about understanding. I've been reading a lot, and one of the things that I wrote recently, um, learning is important when we understand that we build on the information we have previously. So if you're taught correctly at every stage, then you can rely on the information previously to help you to comprehend the new information and attach it to those earlier memories, and it becomes deeper and richer over time. Well, one of the problems is that we don't teach children, or even adults for that matter, how to deepen our understanding and so that it becomes richer and deeper over time. So I wonder, like, even if we had had continuous STEM education, that we would not have had um, climate deniers and folks who didn't understand what vaccines do, or understand what uh, pandemic means, or any number of things that the American public apparently just sort of skipped because they don't understand science. And it's kind of challenging. Um, it's kind of challenging for a lot of reasons because if we're going to teach folks about climate change, which is what we've been doing, ever since, an inconvenient truth, and prior to that, and explain to them about climate, they have had to have prior to that some understanding of weather patterns and the planet and the planetary systems, and um, how heat is released or used and how it's produced as part of work, and it's like all those kinds of things that they would have to know so that they could actually register the new information and add it to not a hard disk, but what I call an interconnected graph, into a neural network of connections. So that if one thing is pressed, all the interconnections associated with it light up in the brain. That's how our brains work. And so the fact that we didn't have anything, and we got was the basics, meant that the next thing we got, all the conspiracy theories connected to what we had just heard about climate change. And so we got confused. And so all these years, every single legitimate scientist has been saying the exact same thing. Yet Americans in general have believed that there was some type of disagreement among scientists. So it's troubling. And so, what are we going to do with that with STEM? Are we going to teach people about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics Or we're going to teach them how to be useful in those industries. You know what I'm saying? Because there's, for many folks, except for the very young, what they have that precedes that is not stable enough, rich enough to take in that new information and make it into something bigger or new. So if they want to teach technology and all they do is teach you how to code, oh, that's great. You can build wondrous programs. But you also need to understand how things work, how the machinery works, the pieces that we can touch, because those are the skills that we need if we want to really understand technology, not just applications that use technology. I don't know why I'm going and talking about this, but it had me thinking because I was looking at, in my work on body wisdom, I was looking at what is productivity for humans. Because all of the productivity methodologies and models are based on how we can work faster and more effective. More, faster, 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 faster. Get to inbox zero. Get to inbox zero. You know, and that's a machine mode. That's us turning into little bots, um, little robot slaves. So, what does it mean then for us to be productive, not as machines, but as humans? That's something I've been looking at. What are the ways? Well, what I came upon is that we have to realize that we have not really learned how to learn. And that is incredible. I see it in my students. I went to a Catholic school. I went to Catholic school for first to 12th grade, and in my high school, um, they actually taught us how to take notes. Thank goodness. They also taught us how to speed read. So that tells you something about our high school. Um, but I've been looking at the students in my mystery school and at the notes that they've been taking, and you can tell that there's no, they don't know how to take notes in a substantive way. And I think the reason is because they haven't learned how to learn. And so I was looking at that, and and it took me into the, how do we teach? And oh, no wonder we were not taught how to learn or how to do all kinds of things. And no wonder the mass of the population didn't grok climate change until everything was on fire, right? Until the heat dome is over most of the US, until the flooding, or as I say, the fire, was it the fire nados, the water spouts, the tornadoes, and the smoke drifting in from the wildfires and the oh my goodness, it's like all four elements whipping up in spirals, causing us to have to make adjustments to our lives. And this may be the new normal. We don't know, right? Maybe there's more. And we're afraid to ask, what, how could it get worse? It could get a lot warmer. Who knows? And so the question is, how are we going to learn enough how to learn so we could learn enough to do something about what's happening in our world? And that's the kind of question, yeah, crazy mystic. That's the kind of questions I get into. But I think it's something to meditate on. I think we all need to check in. How much have we learned about the planetary systems, about how our weather patterns exist, about the currents that are in the ocean, that provide us with stable weather in certain domains, or how the weather patterns can change if there's sufficient water for the flora and fauna, that they are in fact part of the weather system. They produce water as they grow and breathe, and that water gets into the atmosphere and later comes back down as rain. Not there, but somewhere else. How much knocking down trees and changing the ecosystem changes the weather system, which then has an impact on the climate. Ugh, it's so hard to summarize some of these big pieces of information that we have to get really good at comprehending really fast. Because the problems that we face today, dare I say, it's not going to be an app that solves it. It's going to be people who understand real science, who understand ecosystems and weather and water reclamation, and how to actually have farms instead of agribusiness, how to minimize the toxins going into the soil so they don't run off and go into our water and then come out and affect us and causes dis-ease and health impairments that are borne by those who don't get the rich education. We're going to have to understand the real world, not the world that we were taught to learn so we can go out and dig ditches, put up fence posts, and subdivide the commons. We need real education, not only about STEM, but about agriculture, about river management, forest management, about oceanography, about forest. And dare I say, do we even have enough science in us to comprehend that? Get to work. We're running out of time. There are solutions there. No one is coming to save us. We have to learn these things ourselves. That's all I got. Thank you for listening. God is blessed. You and yours. Thank you.